Hello, STEMCON. My name is Stan Baldwin, and I'm the owner of a small business called 3D PT. And I provide 3D printing services for people on the autism spectrum, as well as educational consulting. So if you'd like to do professional development that doesn't suck, I actually have 10 years of science experience as both a STEM and science teacher. So I know what good professional development actually looks like. For STEMCon, my presentation is going to be on helping hands, hips, and hearts, and how 3D printing can help you everywhere, even in your school. So I'm going to show you different applications for 3D printing. Even on this first page here, the girl with the green hand actually has a prosthetic hand that was 3D printed. So you can make a hand for students that's going to cost maybe about 20 bucks worth of material and have a hand that they can print and grow with them. In the center is a bioprinted bladder sample, actually. And so if you imagine having a tank full of skin cells, you could actually bioprint skin tissue or anything like that. My company logo is next. And the last thing on screen right is actually a sample of a 3D printed hip replacement. And so it's totally possible to print in metals as well. It is a little more expensive, but if you want to print something like a hip implant or dental implants or anything like that, it's totally within the realm of possibilities. And so for my presentation, feel free to leave a comment anytime in the discussion area, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you have any questions about 3D printing, I do have a couple slides that briefly cover what's in it, what it entails. But for now, let's go ahead and go on with the introduction. So thank you for coming to my presentation. For an introduction for myself, I was actually diagnosed in high school with what's called nonverbal learning disorder, but it's actually kind of folded into autism spectrum disorder today. It was also comorbid with dysgraphia, which is a handwriting problem, and also with dyscalculia. So that's actually a math issue. So that's where I can't keep numbers lined up when I try and do math equations. And for me, it meant that my teachers couldn't read my handwriting growing up, and also that I had a real difficult time in math, and that's been true all the way through college. I actually ended up taking stats and physics twice, and pretty much just passing all my other math classes. So I'm a professional my license is as a professional secondary science teacher in the state of Colorado. And I also had a teaching license in Alaska. And I have 10 years experience teaching in both rural and urban school districts. So I did teach for 2 years in Alaska, as well as most of my time in Colorado. And I started my company 3D printing, or 3D PT, as a way to support people in the autism spectrum and to provide education and consulting. And I've worked for different printing companies as well. So when Lesbot was here in Colorado, I actually worked as an inside sales rep for them. And I currently work for a company called Elementum 3D. And we 3D print in different ranges of metals. And so that hip implant was actually one of the samples that we had that was made in tantalum. So for this one, I want you to think about and discuss below how you've used 3D printing in your classroom. I'll give you a countdown in a minute, but I want you to think of some ways you've seen it used. So for me, I make different 3D print fidgets. So this is a flexible box breathing strip. So if you've seen those comm strips, this is my own take on them. Make my own fidgets. So this is a hex flex. And a lot of printers can print in flexible material. And so this is a fidget that I actually made for my own sensory needs. So it's great for me to put in my hand, and it's got a little brush and some knobs and different kinds of things. And if you know someone with arthritis, you could actually make an adaptive silverware holder. And so this is just some quick selections of what I've used 3D printing for. So I'll give you a minute. Go ahead and put some comments and discussions below on how you've used it, and then we'll come back. So 3, 2, 1. So let's go ahead and come back. So hopefully all of you guys left some feedback below on how you've seen it used, and I can't wait to see your response. And apart from all these fidgets that I've done, I've used it for a lot of other things that I'll show later on. And for the next couple slides, I'll kind of walk you through an overview of 3D printing, and then go on from there. So you may have heard the term additive manufacturing being used. That's an industrial term. It's commonly called 3D printing. And so if I go between those two, know that I'm talking about the same thing. All 3D printing starts by building a layer at a time from the build plate up. And so the build plate is that base that you build off of in the printer. And I won't go too much into what CAD is, but it's the drawing program that you use to draw something three-dimensionally. And there's all sorts of different CAD programs. You might have heard Tinkercad, Fusion 360, um, SketchUp, any of those. And so you could design your own files to print. That's kind of where you end up going with this hobby as 3D printing. But just to start with, you could actually download tons of files for free from different file sharing sites. You might have heard Thingiverse or Prusa Printers or Cultus. So you can download a lot of files that people have already generated and shared freely. After that's done, your printer has a program called a slicer. And for that, you have to run the 3D print file through it and generate a toolpath in what's called G-code. And that tells the machine what to actually do and how to move. And so G-code's used for industrial machining like CNC lathes and laser cutters. And it's actually useful for 3D printers as well. When you actually go and put in the filament and hit play, it actually runs that G-code for you. So you may be wondering, how is this different from traditional manufacturing or subtractive manufacturing? So a lot of traditional manufacturing starts with some sort of stock or billet of material, and then machines it or cuts it down to shape. Now this is all expensive and only practical at large scale. Um, Additive manufacturing uses some sort of feedstock like the filament spools you see. Other types of printing use powder or resin. You don't want those kind of printers in your school unless you do industrial printing. Now, the nice thing about it is that 3D print can print one or a prototype or small batches of objects. So things like this fidget here, I actually print in a batch of about 10 to 12 at a time. It takes about 5-6 hours, and I can produce a plate of these for sale. And there's a fixed economy price on this. So if this cost me material wise about 30 cents. So if I print 100 or one, it's still only 30 cents a piece. So you won't get an economy of scale doing that, but for small batches, 3D printing is a great tool for entrepreneurs and um, students that, or if you need to do a class of something, you could do that cheaply with 3D printing. So when it comes to 3D printers, there are different printing technologies available, but in terms of what you could use in a classroom, you're going to be limited to what are called FFF or FDM type printers. And FFF is fused filament fabrication. That's the open source name for this type of printer. The patented version that's proprietary is called FDM, fused deposition modeling. We'll go into why there's a difference. There's no difference. It just depends on who you buy the printer from. And these are the common desktop printers that you see that use a filament spool to build an object. So if you think of like a controlled, excuse me. So if you think of a controlled hot glue gun, that's literally what these printers are. And actually, if you're really creative, you could actually recycle just a standard hot glue gun, and with a little tinkering, you could actually mount it to a printer and have it use that as your hot end for your printer. Now, the materials you run through, that's an entire whole other presentation on what's available. You could have rigid filaments. That's going to be like PLAs, PETGs. You could have flexible filaments like this, which is called TPU or Ninja Flex. And there's a ton of other specialty filaments that could do things like dissolve in water or um, be carbon fiber or metal filaments. And most printers can work with those, but you do have to check with the manufacturer. But for right now, pretty much if you're just starting, use PLA or PETG. Don't get into the specialty filaments until you actually have a project that justifies buying them and you have a commitment from your class to actually use a majority of that material. In terms of printers, you're looking at probably about 200 to 1200 based on the build volume and the size of what you want to print. Um, don't try and spend a lot on your first couple printers because you want a printer that you could get and assemble out of the box, learn how to put it together, and then start printing with it. And with some dialing in, you can get any printer to work and produce decent quality prints. Um, there's new printers coming online all the time. The hottest printer right now is the Bamboo line. What's nice is they are ready to go out of the box. The downside is they're proprietary, so you have to buy their filament spools and use their proprietary software. Other printers are open source, so you can access them freely online, and you could use filament that's available anywhere, which is an option I like just because you could shop around on Amazon for cheap filament. Your material costs are going to be about $40 to $100 based on the size of the spool and material. So starting with PLA at about half kilogram to a kilogram worth of filament is going to be about 40 to 60 bucks. And so start with that, and then again, don't spend too much until you actually get a serious commitment to do that. And pretty much on the picture on the right, you can see how the rough outline works. So all these filament FFF type printers basically just have a motor that somehow feeds filament into this hot end in the block, red block there, and then that moves around to produce your object. And there are different variations of this. Again, that's a whole other presentation. Um, but this is the basic of how all 3D desktop 3D printers work. So now that we've covered the basics of 3D printing, um, this is going to be another quick reflection section where you can leave your ideas in the comments below. So I want you to think about your content area and how you could specifically use 3D printing in your classroom. And so I'll give you another timer for 30 seconds, and I want you to leave your comments below about how you would use that. So 3, 2, 1. All right, so let's go ahead and bring it back in. 3, 2, 1. So you could use this for many different things in different content areas. I've seen it used in reading classes for slots for reading cards. History class could use it to replicate all sorts of different historical things. Now, for STEM teacher, I'm a little biased, so I did a 3D printable DNA tile set. So you can make manipulatives with this. And the idea is this shows you all the parts of DNA from the deoxyribose sugar, the phosphates, adenine, thymosin, cytosine, guanine. You compare that with the RNA sequence, and this is your transfer RNA that then takes that. Actually, let's make sure I do this right. Sorry. So here's the transfer RNA that matches this DNA. And you can see here it goes C to G, and then uracil to thymine, and then from there, the essential amino acids are made off of this. So this is an entire lesson that I sell online on Teacher Pay Teachers. Also, this is actually one of my most popular file sets that I sell that is downloaded for free on printables.com. And so the cool thing with teaching, you don't even have to design this. Some teacher designed these already and shared them with you. So you can download them for free for most files. A few of them are for sale. And you could support other teachers by buying these files if they have them for sale. And then I print up a whole class set of these. And so I had them in students working in small groups, and they were making DNA and making proteins within about a class period. So this is a concept that normally takes a long time, like weeks to cover, just because it's a lot of theory, but no manipulatives that you could use to actually make this. So you could use this for almost any content area and in all sorts of different ways. So we'll go through that more in a bit. But just know that you don't even have to design this. Teachers have already designed it and shared it publicly, and all you need is the file. So apart from all these content area uses, um, I know as a teacher, I struggled with meeting students' IEPs and 504 accommodations. And this is something that my teachers in school struggled with even when I was growing up. Now, to type, I was one of the first to really use the computer lab real well. And I also use a technology called AlphaSmart, which isn't even available anymore. But with 3D printing, you could transition and do a lot of different, um, meet a lot of accommodations and not have to put a special order in or wait for Medicaid approval or anything like that. So there's actually a project out of University of Colorado Boulder called the Tactile Book Project, and you can make tactile books in Braille or tactile so you can actually feel them. And their famous example is Harold and the Purple Crayon, that you can actually feel not only the drawings have had depth added to them, but also the story is in Braille. And all that you can actually print in Braille as well. And that helps you with ADA compliance in your building. So if you need to update something, you could print Braille on it or do other things like tactile maps or any sort of other accommodations. Now this adaptive silverware grip was something I made for an international contest. But you can rubber band in any silverware you want. This is printed in a flexible filament, which is a little trickier for some printers. You can print a rigid version as well, and it's just as comfortable. Now, if you got something like this from a therapy supply store, this would probably cost you about $15 to $20. Printing it, just material costs alone, this is 20 cents. And throw in some rubber bands or some hair ties, and you could rubber band in any silverware you want, or even silverware, or spoons, forks, or even writing utensils. So you could have, if you have a student who could only write like this, you could actually rubber band in a pen or pencil or marker and use it this way. And there's tons of these available for free in the designs online. And you could easily play around with finding one that fits your student and go from there. You could also change the scale of the print. And what that means is that you can make it bigger or smaller to fit their hands. So by changing one setting, I can actually size this down or size it up. Now I size mine to fit my hand because that's about the biggest sizes I'll get. But I've actually had test pieces that I've done that are a quarter of the size. Let's see, some other things you can print. How many times have you broken that one little part on a chair or anything like that? So if you break those little feet on the bottom of your chair and you have the students scraping around, you can find chair feet already designed and print those, or you could have the students who broke the chair fix it by designing and printing new chair feet. Building accommodations like door handles, because you're supposed to have a door handle instead of a knob. For grip issues, you could easily modify door handles for those. Tons of accommodations are already printed, and if you just look up what you're looking for in something like Prusa printers, you'll be able to find it. Reading aids, again, you can print things that look like an index card with a slot in them to help students just focus a sentence at a time. ACC holders, so those are like iPad adapters, anything like that. And you could also mount wheelchairs or accessibility aids to a student's mobility device if they need it. Now, the cool thing with this is it's such an iterative, quick process that I'll actually feature a video next that I filmed with my father. So to give you some background, he has some mobility issues from a illness he had. And to get around the house or to get around outside, he has to use a walker. And so I'll let him describe the cup holder that I designed for his walker.
Trying to walk with a water bottle in your hand, a walker, is not safe. That's why a cup holder is very useful.
So what did you want this cup holder for?
To bring my drinks from the kitchen to my recliner. The walker takes both hands to use it. It also allows me to take drinks to my doctor's appointments without carrying it in my hand.
So what did you want in this cup holder design?
Simple and quick attachment to the walker, and also able to accept drink bottles and cups with handles.
So this is a cup holder and it's designed with a slot in it. So you could either put in your favorite cup with a handle or favorite water bottle. How quickly was this cup holder ready?
From CAD design to finished product was less than 1 day.
Any final thoughts?
Now that the 3D cup holder and 3D walker skis are done, I was thinking about a 3D printed cell phone holders to attach to the walker.
So thank you to my father, Craig, for giving me that challenge and agreeing to uh, present this video with me on how he uses 3D printing. So that video is available online on my 3D on my YouTube channel, 3D PT, and will be in this presentation as well. You can also download the file for free off of printables.com and use that on your own walker. So obviously my father's used 3D printing even if he doesn't do the CAD work or design work of printing, and I'm able to do that for him. And for me, I like to make fidgets. So like this, my own centipede fidget or ring fidget. And popular one that I sell at crap at autism fairs is my hex fidget. And all these are flexible and out of TPU. So yes, even the dreaded fidget spinner actually came from 3D printing. The long story short is a mom designed one, shared it for free, and it exploded in popularity. And they're fun and easy to design. And so pretty much all you need is a skateboard bearing, which you could either salvage off that busted skateboard you have, or you could buy them for cheap at any hardware store. And you put that in the center and you spin to your heart's content. I also use it for different kinds of magnets. Let me get that real quick. And so this is off my dishwasher. It's a clean, dirty tag that glows in the dark. And the magnets in it are actually embedded inside the print. So the cool thing with this is it doesn't have any exposed magnets that kids could peel off or anyone could chew off. And this part glows in the dark. So let's see if I can do that. But you could definitely make items like this. Now, you could do a lot with 3D printing small batches. So you could actually do, like I said, any of those manipulators like the DNA tiles, magnets like this that I actually sell at autism fairs. And you can start teaching entrepreneurship or small business skills and have your students practice by selling these kind of items that they make and have the rights to print on their own. So like I made this for my dishwasher, but your students can make something like Minecraft keychains or anything like that and start learning small business skills. So going along with this, probably the biggest use of this is going to be for medical uses. Um, if you've seen anyone with Invisaligns or have them yourself, or any of those clear braces, those are actually printed in resin with a UV resin printer. And it's a whole process to actually print a plate of those devices. But what's cool is that they're customized for each person. And if you ever lose them, you have to pay your dentist a lot of money, but you could reprint a set of Invisaligns. Hip replacements are becoming more popular because you could print them to the actual size of the hip replacement need by the person. It used to be that they were actually kind of like shoes and there was only so many available sizes. Um, and that's not great for a hip replacement. There's organizations already that are using 3D printed items in the field. Organization called Field Ready makes tourniquets for people in Gaza and other medical supplies. And they actually have a whole catalog of field tested prints that you could download from medical devices that are pennies on the dollar to print. Different organizations are using 3D printing as well. This uh, adaptive grip was designed as part of a contest sponsored by the Red Cross. And you might have heard of things like organs or ears being printed. University of Wakefield is probably the leader in that field. And all those are within a decade of FDA approval. And what's cool to think is that even there's printers that print in collagen or algae or alginate, and you could actually get one of those printers now and print with it. So if you want to test biology specimens or do some limited printing, there are bioprinters commercially available. And probably the most famous use of this is the prosthetic hands. There's an organization called Enable, and it's famous for designing the first really 3D printable articulated hands and developing the network to have volunteers print hands for children. So if you know anyone who needs that, you could contact them and they'll connect you with a local printer who could work with your person to design and kind of customize the hand for whatever needs they have. And so in all these ways, 3D printing definitely literally prints a hand, can help with your hips and help your students either enjoy things like fidgets or help them in a lot of ways. And that helps you as a teacher, as well as just makes you feel good, but also know that you're meeting their accommodations and providing for their needs. So it's clear that 3D printing can be used across all parts of your classroom, from your content area to meeting your students' IEDs and 504 accommodations. You could also use it to fix all those broken chairs and parts in your room, organizers, and ever popular fidgets to keep your students quiet. So I designed my fidgets actually so they're TPU, they're quiet, and they don't hurt when they're thrown. So these are very teacher friendly as well as student friendly. And holders, all sorts of cool things. And so if you'd like to know more, please leave a comment and I could follow up with that as soon as possible. And if you like what you see, you could also subscribe to my YouTube channel at 3DPT, or you could ask questions or follow up with this presentation. If you'd like to know more, my website is 3dpt.club, C-L-U-B, and email is stan@3dpt.club. I'll leave some additional slides on the end for resources, but this is the end of my presentation. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again next year at STEMCON.